Welcome to Integration Excellence, the podcast around enterprise integration and interface management. We explore topics related to integration in the SAP world and beyond. My name is Adam Kivon. I am an SAP integration expert, book author, trainer, and founder of White Paper Interface Design. Enjoy! Yeah, welcome to another episode of Integration Excellence. And I have a guest with me today, Mike Zaschka. Mike, we know each other since a while now. We met for the first time. I was checking this recently on the BTP Con in Isernhagen, close to Hanover, in 23. So it's been a while now. Since then, we also met with at some partner events, BTP partner events with SAP. So yeah, welcome. Happy to have you here with me, Mike. And I would hand over the stage to you to, maybe introduce yourself, tell us a little bit who you are, where you come from, what you do, and then we deep dive into our topic, Kafka and CAP.
Yes, thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me, actually. And yes, so as you said, we first met at BTPCon, and also the second time was in the area of BTP. So that basically explains where I'm actually coming from. So yes, I'm freelancing, self-employed, developer, consultant, solution architect. Highly interested in modern SAP technology. So I had the opportunity to work on BTP from 2019. So I was in my former company, we actually built products on BTP. So we actually started at Neo, then shifted to Cloud Foundry, and I was also able to do some customer projects where I actually get in touch with a lot of BTP stuff around application development, but also integration. So I worked on cloud integration, API management, event mesh, etc. And yeah, that's really interesting and lots of technology to use. Yes, but I also have a traditional SAP background. So my entry point to the SAP world actually was analytics, BW. So I'm also familiar with the ABAP world, UI5. But again, my main focus area is actually everything around BTP.
Great, cool, nice. Yeah, and I would say, you would say you are more a developer or more an integration person. So because those for me, those two people or those two personas are quite not always the same profile, having a little bit different mindset. So where would you locate yourself?
Okay, I totally agree with you. As I explained, I had the opportunity to actually work on both ends, also do integration, which actually helped me a lot to actually also get a integration perspective on things. But I would say I mainly am a developer by heart. I like coding and building applications. So that's actually my main area of interest, I would say. But again, I've worked with cloud integration, API management, etc. So I also got into this part. But I would totally say in this round, you are the expert on the integration part.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's funny because from a pure integration perspective, software developers are sometimes a bit risky, sometimes a bit dangerous people in the organization, because they say we can call the API directly. We can do this here. We can do this in the code directly, and so on. And that is always something that it's definitely a risking point. Yeah, and if you think about what is technically possible and what you can do and what is maybe best from a governance or from a strategic perspective, from a enterprise grade application run perspective. But yeah, that's how it is.
Yes, I can understand this, but there's no black and white here. So again, I can understand it. Things I have to admit that potentially I also use shortcuts whenever possible. But yeah, I get the sense that especially in big organizations, governance is a big topic. And sometimes not the fastest way is the best way to go. So, but yeah, that's like really actually good introduction to our topic today, because like I think this actually is precisely at this spot where you can go this way, you can go this way, and there's some scenarios where the other one makes sense. So yeah, let's look into it.
That's true. Good. So maybe just to warm up and to start into the topic, especially for, most of the audience is mainly integration oriented. So maybe some people don't even know what is CAP. I guess probably 99% have already heard about Kafka or even worked with Kafka. But CAP is maybe something not known to everyone. So can you explain what it is, what is the core idea behind, or what it consists of, and just to explain a little bit
Okay.
what is behind.
Yes, of course. Well, CAP is actually short for Cloud Application Programming Model, and this basically. So let's start from the beginning. So in the past, there was like you had your SAP system, which is a monolith ABAP stack where you can do everything in ABAP and everything on stack, and but that's like still somehow possible. But the idea from SAP introducing BTP, like the cloud platform, is to not do everything on stack anymore, but to use the BTP for actually those two scenarios, right? So for integration. But also for development. So if you want to move out certain things, more complex scenarios, you don't do this on stack anymore, but instead go to the cloud. And then you are actually leaving this monolith ABAP stack. So you can still do ABAP stuff in the cloud, but there's also like the opportunity to use other programming languages. So on BTP, you have like the Cloud Foundry runtime, which basically gives you freedom to use Java, Python, JavaScript, or any other programming language to actually build applications, services on top. And why this freedom is actually great, there's also like still need some guidance, right? And basically SAP came up with this cloud application programming model, which basically is a framework at its core, but also like a set of best practices on how you should build applications on BTP, because if you use CAP and follow those patterns, then you get a lot of boilerplate done by the framework. So it really greatly connects to the platform itself. So also authentication, authorization, HANA as a database layer, even event mesh or event integration scenarios. Then you really don't have to do much coding because the framework itself connects all the dots to those services. And yes, so this basically is CAP. So it's a framework available in Java and JavaScript, Node.js, and I really like it because I think it's really, really cool. So when you look at offerings by SAP, you oftentimes find that they basically took some existing solution, especially in the integration sector. Integration suite, when you look under the hood, you still find other stuff, and they build like a layer on top. But actually, CAP is something that they invented by themselves, and I think that they really did a great job. So, for example, if you're like interested in this, there's also a nice YouTube series by one of the developer advocates, DJ Adams. He does things every Friday where he talks about stuff, and there's also a nice one where he with the core architect of CAP, Daniel Hutzel, they have a session or multiple sessions talking about the art and science of CAP, where they like go into the details and explain a little bit about the core concepts and why they choose to do things the certain ways. And I think it's really explains that this is like really well thought out, and it's actually really great to use.
Nice, cool. And that means that if you build applications on CAP, it ends up in, for example, Node.js application that is deployed on Cloud Foundry.
Exactly. So you can run it on Kima, like the other runtime as well. But yeah, it's focused on easy development and deployment on Cloud Foundry.
Cool. Okay. And the, let's say, alternative to CAP is RAP, right?
So
if I understood as well.
Yeah, so one of the alternatives is RAP. Yes, so there's, of course, there's ABAP on BTP. And basically RAP is also a ABAP RESTful programming model. So it's a modern way to actually do ABAP development, which is also quite nice. You cannot only do this on BTP, but also like on-premise systems. So it's also for if you develop stuff on Stack or on-premise, then you should use RAP. But like there's still this thing that even there's ABAP in the cloud, it's still like a monolith system. So the core idea of CAP is that it really have isolated, focused, I wouldn't call it microservices, but like modular apps that are doing a specific thing and that can scale very well. Like if you have certain functionality, you can actually have multiple instances running and then without spoiling and have an effect on the other apps. Whereas like in the ABAP world, you are all still on this monolith system stack. So yeah, it's like, it's a little bit different. So this one is cloud native, CAP is cloud native, the idea is cloud native, whereas RAP is still like coming from the traditional SAP development.
Okay.
Yes, and then of course you can actually bring your own stuff, right? In BTP, you can have whatever you want running, but then you have to take care of basically everything by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned that Cloud Foundry is nothing else than I mean, in simple words, maybe it's wrong, like a pre-configured Linux box with a specific set of RAM and CPU power, and that is, for example, if the application is crashing, it restarts the application. Some self-healing mechanisms inside, but in the end, it's nothing more than that. It's like a small virtual machine environment, right, where you can deploy stuff on. That can be anything. Yeah, so that's really cool. Yeah?
Yes. Yes, actually, that's a thing that I really like about BTP as well. Like, if you look at other hyperscalers, you have lots of options. You can also like build your Docker containers and Kubernetes infrastructure. So sometimes this is necessary if you have like really big solutions in place. But oftentimes, if you want to build a small application, then you just want to build this application, deploy it somewhere, and have it running. And that's like precisely where Cloud Foundry really is good because, as you mentioned, like you have this small isolated container. It basically comes with a Node.js runtime if you want a Node.js. And you just really build the application, deploy it there, and then it's running. And yeah, that's actually very easy.
Yeah, that's cool. Back in when there were physical tech ed sessions. I think this year will be the next one in Germany. But I remember there were some in Barcelona a couple of years ago before COVID. It was quite nice actually to you could walk through specific steps to build your own application, to deploy it and run it, and have it in a trial account and experience this without even having detailed knowledge about it. It was quite straightforward to build very, very simple stuff, but it can be also super powerful, right? So you can do a lot of great things inside, which are maybe not super easy, but well managed and well organized, right?
Yes, and that's like also like a big surplus. Like if you're coming from a traditional SAP background, you know that projects may take a while because of the complexity of the system, the complexity to get things together, and like it depends, highly depends on the use case, but you're like able to spin up a application really within minutes to have a database layer and then OData service on top. So it's really, really, really great.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so now let's dive into the integration side of it. So our main topic today is Kafka, and Kafka is not a SAP owned solution. Let's say it's it comes from Apache as a framework, and in most of the cases I have learned, if you speak about Kafka, if you deal with Kafka brokers or environments, you oftentimes have Confluent in place, right? Which is a productized version of Kafka, hosted and managed by a SaaS provider, Confluent, where you can run your Apache Kafka instances and connect to it. And as there is no native SAP ABAP support, right? I think you can integrate through an add-on. I think we also had a session with Asapio, who are also focused on SAP ABAP integration towards the brokers. Yeah, not only Kafka but also Solace and Event Mesh, of course. But yeah, let's dive into the Kafka topic without going into event-driven, technologies and the need for event-driven integration. I think we covered this in other episodes of this podcast as well, and you can find a lot of stuff around event-driven integration. But I was reading a blog from you, Mike, and then which is by the way also in the show notes. So have a look. Yeah, it consists of 2 parts, so it's quite extensive and quite detailed. It's a really great blog explaining how you can connect to Kafka, sending and receiving data from CAP. Yeah. And I thought, like, why would we need this? Why is it really necessary to have this? Because, in my simple world, we have a Kafka adapter on SAP Integration Suite Cloud integration. Yeah, we can send data to a topic. We can consume data from a topic through an integration layer. Everything is great. Why would we do this directly from an application on CAP? So yeah, maybe you can explain what was your main motivation behind it and how it was done. Actually, that would be good.
That's a very good question, actually. Okay, so let's potentially go one step back. Again, like talk a little bit about CAP, but only a small amount. One of the core features, or I really like CAP also because it basically integrates messaging natively inside of the framework. So basically, the event-driven architecture is a first-class citizen here. So of course, you need to handle synchronous stuff, like if you want to respond to an OData service or read stuff with a database, then of course this has to be in sync. But again, like there's a central messaging capability built inside of CAP where you actually do not really need to deal with the broker, but instead have a central messaging service, and the communication with the broker is abstracted away in an adapter, for example, right? So you can connect to this and do a little bit more specific stuff, but you don't need necessarily to do this because it's really greatly built in. So my main motivation, this is a big topic, you can tackle this from multiple angles. So let's potentially start with the main motivation. I think, as you mentioned, inside of the SAP world, Kafka is not that big of a topic. Mainly because of product management decisions, they have event mesh in place and they want everyone to use this. So this is the main focus area. There's also I'm not sure if you know this, there's this business application or cloud application, the Event Hub. Yes, so that's an idea to event mesh is actually part, or advanced event mesh, part of the whole integration suite package. So you have to go big if you want to use it. The application Event Hub is something that seems to be native functionality that will be provided as part of BTP. So you get this basically for free, which is something that's not happening not so often in the SAP world. Currently with some limitations because you can actually consume events that are being sent by SAP systems, but you can actually not really create messages as of now using this Event Hub. But again, SAP has its broad strategy around what they want to offer in the ecosystem, and also if you have an S4 system, and yes, as you mentioned, you talked about this in the past, event-driven architecture becomes a thing. It's becoming more and more a thing. S4 is capable of emitting over 1,000 different events as of now. So if you look at the business accelerator, you find lots and lots of events, but they all can only be piped through event mesh or the SAP architecture, right? So it's really not. You can use external tools to actually go different routes, but mainly if you stick into the SAP universe, first you will go this way. Actually, one interesting aspect, taking this, even if it's not really a thing for the customers, the clients, actually, if you look at, I looked at the source code of CAP, and I actually found a Kafka adapter already be available, which is limited to, so you cannot connect to the outside world, so you can only use Kafka services on the BTP infrastructure, but they are not actually available for customers. So which, like, if you read between the lines, potentially they are using this inside of SAP. And I heard some rumors that they use it a lot for actually building their own applications. But again, like from the product strategy perspective, they don't want to offer this to the customers. So yes, but if you like raise your head and look over the edge of the sub-organizations, and that's basically something that you potentially would agree on, is you find Kafka in many places. And that's also my experience, right? So I don't know, you're the integration expert, but
Kafka oftentimes is a holistic strategy to many organizations, yeah, and they say, like, every event that goes through the organization, be it from SAP or not, or the non-SAP world, has to go through Kafka, right? And sometimes we have to really implement solutions where we are, getting a message through event mesh, for example, and then we have to take it and route it to Kafka using the Kafka adapter, which is quite funny, yeah. If it would go directly to Kafka from SAP, it would be much easier, right? Because it then would serve the strategy immediately. But customers and organizations are afraid using add-ons and additional solutions oftentimes. And now when it comes to be, is it clean core or not? It's another challenge, right? So, of using add-ons. So the more you stick to the standard, the better you are. But ideally, the more you can simplify your architecture, the better you are off as well. Yeah. So why would you have to operate multiple brokers? Yeah, if you are having a global decision for Kafka already, that's a thing. So yeah, but from that angle, I can understand that it definitely makes sense to have a very native and very direct integration from an application into a broker, yeah? Because it makes much more sense to natively integrate with an eventing platform, right? And it's sometimes strange that it's only that event mesh is so pushed, although it's not even an SAP solution, right? It's not built by SAP. It's under the hood. It's Solus, right? So unless SAP is going to buy Solus, this is going to be still a combined offering and not a pure SAP offering. But yeah, nobody. I mean, I can only speculate. We can only speculate about this, right?
Yes. And I mean, like, that, adding to the fact that, like, the initial version of Event Mesh, while at its core, it did provide, or still does provide, core messaging capabilities, like really integrating this with like a central event bus outside of the SAP world is what's not possible, right? So with advanced event mesh, you have like this bridging stuff where you can actually bridge events to and from the outside world, like also from Kafka. But if you're not running event mesh or advanced event mesh, you're like still in this captured in this ecosystem. And so basically this like was one of the core motivations actually to also provide native Kafka integration capabilities for CAP. Actually, the main motivation that I used this in the past. So you actually have, so basically you can use CAP for multiple things, right? You can like build extensions to the S4 system, like to move things out, and you still rely on data that's inside of the S4 system. You maybe consume events that are coming from the S4 system and then build something on top. but you can also use this in isolation, right? So you can actually build products, SaaS solutions on BTP, and also like distribute them. And then potentially you have a not direct connection to either to S4 or even to integration suite, right? So if you have multiple applications running and they want to communicate with each other in a synchronous way, then I think that's a valid scenario to introduce some other functionality, right? And CAP itself has native support for multiple messaging solutions, like Event Mesh, of course, but also like there's Redis PubSub support, so where you don't rely on Event Mesh, but you also can use this. And like again, like Kafka is very powerful. It is like used almost everywhere, and so why not use this in such a scenario as well? So basically, I'm talking about like two scenarios. So this one scenario, and the other one would be potentially you have data connected to your S4 systems, but you actually, and that's like actually you are an integrator and you try to focus on governance and stuff, but sometimes potentially it does not make sense to actually go all the way through the event bridge and route everything to multiple channels to get this information out or in. But instead, like if in an organization like Kafka is the main messaging channel, and then potentially it's also okay to actually direct connect to this. Like there potentially is also governance already in place regarding this, and you don't need to go the extra route through Event Mesh or through cloud integration, because like there are several adapters like you mentioned, so you can use cloud integration. It has native sender receiver adapters. You can go through advanced event mesh, not the smaller event mesh, but the advanced event mesh, which has like the event bridge, where you can like bridge those events. And there's also like, I think there's other connectors like in DataSphere you can connect to that.
Exactly.
So there's
Yes.
like many points where you could potentially take a route through, but sometimes it just makes sense to directly connect this. And then it's like also the developers speaking, like if I can really build an application fast and I have to wait like for a couple of weeks to actually having dealt with all the integration stuff, then I mean, even if it's if this was the productive use case to actually have this route through, potentially to build a small prototype and to get things running fast and build proof of concepts, then it would also make sense to actually direct connect to this. To omit the governance part for now, but add it later on.
No, but I also don't see it as an issue or as a problem connecting from an application directly to a broker, because a broker for me is part of the integration stack. It's part of the integration layer, and therefore it's not treated as point-to-point integration anymore. Yeah, it's bad if you, for example, have two microservices talking directly to each other through APIs without going through an API gateway, for example. Yeah, that is bad integration because it's point to point. It's simple, it's easy, it's quick, but it's bad. Yeah, it's nobody except for the developers and from the project. Nobody later on knows that this exists. Yeah, if you're not going through a gateway, but if you go through a broker, it's clearly visible and you can see that certain things are used, are still being in place, and then they are relevant, and it's still active. Yeah, and we can put things on it to control it. Yeah. So I see a clear tendency that applications directly connect natively with brokers, yeah, and going through a middleware like cloud integration is just another option to do this, right? So then it makes totally sense, not only go through Event Mesh or other PubSub brokers from CAP, but also to Kafka, and that is great, yeah. And maybe you can explain what you've done to achieve this, and what needed to be added, what is on top of the let's say vanilla delivery, how to call it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So maybe one thing to add, like, there's also like certain limitation if you only use CAP. So basically, it's in the licensing that you are not allowed to actually use this to extract data from the SAP systems and push it somewhere else. So that's also like things that you need to take into account if you want to use this. Okay. Yes. So what did I do? Actually, I did not really did something groundbreaking. So I'm a solo developer. I actually connected the dots. So I have used this in the past. There are like multiple ways how you can connect to Kafka. There's Kafka Connect on the lower level, but there's also like libraries for certain programming languages available. So what I basically did is I took Kafka JS, which is a JavaScript implementation, and yeah, actually build an adapter for CAP so that it really plays nice with the internal APIs. Again, like as I mentioned, CAP has really great support for messaging. Like there's native integration for things like an outbox. So you have like, even if you emit a message somewhere, then it's not directly sent, but it's like queued internally inside of a system. And it try to be emitted. And if the broker does not respond, or if it cannot be emitted, it still stays in the queue. So if something like that letter queue, basically built inside of the framework. So that's really nice. Yeah, it's really nice because it, again, like there's something potentially that Kafka, for example, does not provide out of the box. So this is all handled by the framework. And again, like then this just quotes the transport protocol, like connecting to topics, sending and receiving messages from there. So basically the Kafka specific parts that I actually built in. And again, like as events and messaging is a native concept inside of CAP, it was just really adding this adapter to the existing functionality. So this was basically like the first solution, and that's also what I explained in those blog posts. I took my time to actually explain this in more detail, but I actually want to showcase that it's really easy to integrate. So there's like in CAP examples on GitHub where developers can check out some example CAP stuff that SAP is providing. And I basically shown that by simply adding the configuration for Kafka, you could switch things and use Kafka as a messaging platform. And you don't need to change a single line of code to actually get this functionality baked in, which is, again, I think really, I've done a good job, but like the framework itself does a very good job to make this easy. Cool. Yes, so that was like the idea for the first version to actually get this on par and use it. And yes, I last week actually was a CAP conference where I also had the opportunity to talk a little bit about the integration. And I was trying to get things ready, but sadly I failed. So I will like push the next version, I don't know, in the next 2 weeks or so, where I basically focused a little bit more on native Kafka functionality, because like there's some core concepts that are not like available in the messaging functionality inside of CAP, and also not which you do not really find in event mesh, for example, or things are different. Like for example, like there's native cloud Kafka stuff, like you have to deal with keys in certain scenarios. Right, so if you have, so at its core, Kafka is really simple. It's about topics and consumers, producers, consumer groups. But if you have like scaleless architecture and have parallel processing and stuff, then you potentially might want to use keys, because then things are sent to the same partition inside of a topic and stuff like this. And this is not a first-class citizen in CAP, so I basically introduced mechanisms to actually handle those scenarios as well. And there's, for example, the whole serialization stuff, which will be added. So actually SAP everything is evolving around cloud events as a specification for how events should look like and what they should contain. And even if it's an open standard, I think in the Kafka world, there's different things in place. So you have your Afro a lot. Which basically is two things. For once, it's like an opportunity to describe the structure of an event. right? So there's like, if you have a schema registry, and this is an optional part of Kafka as well, to have a schema registry where you can define the structure and bind this to a topic. So so everything that goes into the topic is well formatted, and even as a consumer, that what you get out, so there's no surprise here. So Afro can be used to actually describe this structure, and also like you can serialize data that will be stored inside of this topic with Afro, for example. And then it will not really look like what you send from the application. So it will be stored internally in a different format. But once you read from the topic, the data needs to be deserialized to actually be in the original format. And that's also something that I like built in the latest version, which I think is pretty great, because like you mentioned this before, that's stuff that I'm not an integration expert, so I have not seen many Kafka instances, but I hear that this is like also de facto standard, and it's not yet supported by even in those integration scenarios with cloud integration and stuff.
Yeah, it's still on the roadmap, and customers are waiting for it, because oftentimes a prerequisite of using Kafka is that you have to be part of the registry. You have to be well aware, what you are sending or receiving as a consumer or producer. And organizations are enforcing this, and just connecting and pushing data or consuming data from a topic or to a topic is oftentimes not enough. Yeah, so this is great. So you will be ahead of the cloud integration delivery, I hope, and a really good alternative in that sense. And then even if you could think about having a let's say very simple microservice that just transforms OData calls or REST calls from a cloud integration into a Afro formatted Kafka message, that would be nice. That would be also nice, as a technical microservice, in that sense, to bridge the worlds.
Yes, I actually have not thought about this as well, but yes, that's potentially a valid point that this could be used as.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Nice. Very good. Yeah. So this is still what you are enhancing. So yeah, we'll be happy to add this as well to the show notes if we have it by the release of the episode here. Good. So I'm just thinking, did we cover everything that is important for the episode? I think yes. Mike, would you say what would you say? I mean, we always give our interview partners a chance to have a call to action, or to the listeners to what to do, what to go next, what to try out. Obviously, everyone is invited, I guess, to connect with you on LinkedIn, and I will be sharing this as well. Have a look at the blog post. But yeah, Mike, what else would you say?
Yes. Actually, the plugin itself is open source, so it's available on GitHub, so you can check out the source code. You can easily integrate this and build a small prototype for yourself. And yes, if you use it, like I'm really interested in any sort of feedback. So sadly, I did not receive much feedback on. So actually, I have multiple open source plugins, so not only covering messaging with Kafka, but also other stuff. So there I receive a little bit more feedback on the Kafka application itself, not so much. But it was like super interesting at the recap conference where some people came to me and said, "Oh, one woman actually said that I saved the whole project because they could use this and actually integrate." I was super happy to receive such a feedback. So yeah, try this out. Get in contact with me. If it does not work for you, then we can look at this, how we can potentially fix this. If it does work for you, then I'm also interested in any feedback. So yeah, that's like the basic message. And in case you are developing, like you could potentially read through the lines, but I'm a big fan of CAP, so look into this if you want to build stuff on BTP. It's super awesome. Yes.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mike. That was an interesting episode. I really enjoyed it. It
Me
was
too.
great having you here. And yeah, maybe we can have a next round on this in a couple of months, and then see what has been done in the meantime, and then maybe how things evolved in the Kafka world as well. So it would be
Yes,
great.
yes. Just send an invitation and I'll be there.
Cool, great. Thank you,
Okay.
Mike, and thanks to all. And yeah, let's talk and see each other again. Bye. How mature is your organization when it comes to integration topics? Find out for free with our integration maturity assessment at wint.co/IMA. That's whint.co/IMA. In case you want to take control of your integration landscape to increase transparency and automate your integration quality processes, please schedule a call at wint.co/contact. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe to our podcast. See you next time.